So this panel is going to be addressing the lack of social services and the provision of support for sex workers worldwide. And we're going to be discussing how to be a supportive ally and building resilience and pathways to the end of criminalization for sex workers. Panelists will speak about key strategies for sex workers, especially women of color, those from the global south, transgender women, rural women, and how to use public services and already existing infrastructure, leaving no one behind. So, again, welcome. And to reiterate, there will be a Q&A section, and we would like those who have questions to, you can flag down some of our volunteers. They have some paper and pencils for you, and then all questions will be passed forward to me so I can address our lovely panelists. And I would like panelists to just take a moment or so to introduce themselves. So I'm just going to pass the mic.
Hi everyone, I'm Yose Karungi from Uganda. I work with Transgender Equality Uganda, but also I'm a board member. Oh, I'm a board. Sorry, I'm Yose Karungi from Uganda. I work with Transgender Equality Uganda, and also I'm a board member of the African Sex Workers Alliance. I'm a proud sex work rights activist. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Koli Buthelezi. I'm the national coordinator of the biggest sex worker movement in South Africa and the founding member of the movement. We are also the member of the African Sex Worker Alliance and also the member of the NSWP, the Global Network of Sex Work. Thank you.
Yo. What's going on, everybody? My name is Christian Lovehall. I'm from Philadelphia. I am a trans male sex worker, a member of the Black Sex Worker Collective, also a trans rights activist, and founder of the Philly Trans March.
Hi everybody, a very sweet good evening. I'm Alicia from Malaysia. We are sex workers organization, but myself is transgender woman. In Malaysia, we work together. Our umbrella is the Malaysian AIDS Council, so I'm part of the Malaysian AIDS Council. Malaysia, we can talk later a little bit about Malaysia. Yes, we are here. Yep, thank you.
I just want to thank all the panelists who came from far and wide to have this evening with us. So, thank you. The first question that I'm going to give everybody a chance to speak about, oh, I forgot, I did not introduce myself. I will skip me. My name is Rhee, and I am a committee member of the New Jersey Red Umbrella Alliance. So this is us. And we are a sex worker-led organization where we are fighting for the rights of sex workers in New Jersey. Now, I could ask my question. With changing discourse and decriminalization of sex work being mentioned more and more in the mainstream around the world, how, in the current year, is your organization taking new steps to address the needs and rights of sex workers? And what, in your part of the world, do you feel is the most important thing to address?
Thank you, moderator. I think what we've done as, as sex workers, we've worked with the mainstream, the ICWEA, with the support from NJRUA, We have
Can you tell who is the ICWA for those?
the International Community of Women Living with HIV Eastern Africa, with support from NJRUA. This is the way how we penetrated the mainstream, doing advocacy with a project called Women Today, addressing needs of sex workers, but also they have done a lot of advocacy to synthesize mainstream women about transgender women and sex workers and LBD women. Also, we've been able to go in the countryside to mention about the existence of sex workers and how, it's part to decriminalize, sex work, because we believe that the number one toolkit of HIV prevention is the decriminalization of sex work. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to?
As a HIV organization doing HIV testing and also other sexual infection disease, we are really stuck to do a very bigger as a full sex workers project in Malaysia. Limited resource, limited support. It's very critical moment in Malaysia to do a lot of sex workers activities. Where I'm coming from, the majority of Muslim country. The population is a Muslim, and we are really stuck there because even though our supreme law is a civil law, but we are hiding in a Sharia law. For the 2019, what we done so far, exercise the existing law, how the law is playing with sex workers. There are in Malaysia we have male sex workers, we have female sex workers, we have trans sex workers. But once we talk about sex work, we only talk about the work where people doing. We don't categorize by the gender. We exercise. We only able to exercise the civil law, but we couldn't get the proper Sharia lawyer to exercise the Sharia law. Once people hearing about sex workers in my country, they like a very taboo. The words is very taboo because always the people and the authorities they like to sweep all the issues about sex workers under the carpet. Yes, we are near and also making closer and doing some linkage with the Bar Council, where they can support us in a law perspective. And for the Sharia law, we are also working together with the Mufti, where we can get someone who can tell us the rights law, how the law are discriminating the sex worker, how the law is really make it the sex workers marginalized. And then the women who are being canned in the public, how we can save them. Until today in Malaysia, we don't have any support if the person been caught and went through like a canon in public, but we don't have any online support to support the person who are doing sex work.
Oh, did you want?
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. What I would like to say that what we've done so far in South Africa, we have made a lot of noise, and we're still making a lot of noise, and we're not going to be quiet until we get where we want to go. With around a decriminalization of sex work, we have lobbied our government left and right. We have managed to be part of the civil society forum within the South African AIDS National Council. We are now recognized as the sector within the civil society. We have also lobbied some of the organizations that are part of the ASIJIGI meaning that we are turning back, not turning back. It's the coalition of organizations that are 74, comprises of advocates, lawyers, sex workers themselves. We are part of the steering committee also in that, and they're advocating for the human rights of sex workers, but their focus also is more on decrim. And we have also recently started the PPP, it's called the Policing Positive Partnership, which that is looking at the opportunities and creating some spaces for sex workers to report issues and also to address those challenges that we face at the grassroots level. I'll share that for now.
Thank you so much. You spoke about having to deal with certain sex of laws in Malaysia, and you also talked about how being a part of the public discourse as sex workers has been very effective. And I guess I wanted to expand on the idea of working with quote unquote civvies, working with those that are not sex workers, and what are some positive collaborations and ways that you've built solidarity with those that are not sex workers to further sex workers' rights? And that's open for anybody.
Okay. Yes. Thanks again for the question. As I said earlier on that since 2011, we have tried and worked so hard to push and making sure that we are recognized within the civil society as a sector. The Civil Society Forum is different organizations with different opinion, with different voices and different views that they come together to address issues and barriers that the community and society at large that are facing, which is sex workers are part of society, are part of community. So we were so privileged to be part of that. And then there was also a launch of the Sex Worker National HIV Plan, which was launched by the Deputy President, which now is currently the President. So we now in the process of having a call, like trying to get a meeting with him, because he now understands the issues of sex workers as he was the chairperson within the civil society. So being part of the Civil Society Forum, I think that has created an opportunity for us to explore and be able to voice out the issues of sex workers in that platform. And it has also created an opportunity to be able to, because there are 18 sectors within the civil society, I think that is important that I highlight. There's men's sector, there's labor sector, there's children's sector, there's the religious sector. So in that platform, it makes it easy because we now have that partnership at that level. So going down, because we believe in the bottom up and the up to bottom. So in that way, we're able to kind of like build a partnership within the civil society and the provincial AIDS councils within the regions, because there are 9 provinces in South Africa. So we are in that process now that we're trying to bring the religious, because there's a different view and the way of people thinking and their beliefs on that. So that part of the structure within the civil society, it has actually helped us to be able to access some of the high-level sectors. For an example, the COSATU, which is the leading labor movement in South Africa that is supporting the rights of workers, they've now publicly called for the decriminalization of sex work. And also SANAC, South African AIDS National Council, they've also called and spoke out to present at the Women's Caucus in Parliament that they're calling for the decriminalization of sex work in South Africa, same as at the CGG. So in that way, I think it is important to make sure that the inclusive of sex workers in those platforms, it is more visible, because we are tired of being invisible. It is important and it's high time that you are visible. So in that way, we are still on the struggle and we will not stop till we get the decriminalization of sex work.
In Uganda, what we've done is that we've tried to call, the media houses, and we've had press conferences. I remember the time when sex workers were being murdered. We joined together the women's movement, and we did the women's march together. And also the other thing we've done is that we've gone to police stations to give back to the community. Like we've gone, we've bought food for inmates, and we've cleaned. We've tried to construct police stations, and telling people, giving messages out and saying that sex workers are human, and if we can give back to the community, then we shouldn't be treated in the way how we're being treated as inhuman, and yeah.
So I think in Philly we haven't really attacked policy yet. But some of the work I've done, very simple work. There's a lot of street-based sex work in my city, especially when it comes to trans population. So I facilitate a group called the Trans Masculine Advocacy Network, aka T-Man. So something we've done is just going out, passing out condoms on a stroll, and just talking to our sisters, because we do believe that we are our sister's biggest keeper. And so just doing that. I also created a hub called the Treasure Chest, where people could donate clothes, wigs, weaves, clothing items, different things that trans women sex workers needed. And so I created that. They could come anytime, pick up free clothes, food, anything that they needed. Really nice clothes too, not like your typical secondhand clothes. Really nice clothes. A lot of them still had tags on it. So just providing anything that they needed. We did that. And I've also, I've spoken at, different rallies, panels, emphasizing that sex work is real work. And I think, that's something that we're going to keep, emphasizing in my city, because they don't get it. And so, just really reaching out to each other and just being there for each other. I'm always on a panel trying to create visibility for trans male sex workers, because a lot of people don't believe that we exist. So, just engaging with people via conversation that way, and raising awareness to the intersectionality, and just the many issues that we deal with uniquely as trans men. So.
Thank you. Last year, about May, I just opened one shelter home for sex workers in Kuala Lumpur. That is the first shelter home for the sex workers in Malaysia. How and where, and then how to sustain the thing, this and that. I just grabbed some funds from my drop-in center, and then I ran the bungalow house for my committee. And then we in Malaysia, we done with the size population estimate, and for HIV, so I got the data from that. I've used the data, talked to the private company about sex workers in Malaysia, how vulnerable we are, and then now we are sustaining the project, sustain the drop-in center. Beside that, our working area for sex workers always been abolished by the authorities, like city council, many others, like National Anti-Drugs Agency. They come together with police and also the religious officers together, and then they will abolish the place. The sex workers, they don't have place to work, they don't have any support. The outreach worker is very challenges to reach them out because they are more to home based, and then they do business under WeChat and also WhatsApp. But these authorities is very clever, and then they go to this WeChat, and then they find out people are doing sex work, and then they catch them, and then they punish the people. So we're sending out the letter to them how we're going to address this issue, even though they are sex workers, but they are citizens, and then they work for the country. So what are the solutions, or where we can discuss with them. So that is ongoing.
In South Africa, we have had a couple of dialogues with the police officers, because there was a time where the condom was used as evidence back those, I think back 2016 and 2017, and then it went quiet a little bit because we started to make noise, and then it started again. But the tricky part is that, the way must have forgotten to say, that in South Africa, sex work is criminalized, the sale of sex and the buyer, any person who benefits on sex work. So yeah, you recognize as a crime if you sell sex in South Africa. So then what is happening is sometimes police would raid the bags of sex workers wanted you to empty. If you're walking on the street, they wanted to see they ask if you're a sex worker, if you say no, and then they'll say empty your bag, and then they will arrest the sex workers and make use of the condom as evidence. But the tricky part is that when they get to court, when we're appearing to the magistrate, and then the story has now changed. They're using the municipality bylaws that it's public nuisance, or either it's loitering. So then we had started again to make use of the civil society platform to inform them that if we're fighting the HIV epidemic in this country, if condoms are still being taken away from sex workers and used as evidence, because we also have been trying to track those cases, but it hasn't been easy for us, because when you appear to the magistrate and then it's something different. But then what we've done through the civil society engagement, we got, because the South African AIDS National Council, they are a powerful structure within the country that they've got access to the government people. So they now put us in contact with the Deputy Minister of Police, which attended the International AIDS Conference. I'm not sure if some of you were there. And he spoke very well that they're tired actually of arresting sex workers. They now wanted to focus on the cash transit. And then he spoke out freely that he's calling for the decriminalization of sex work. Then when we go back to South Africa, we've held about 2 dialogues in the Eastern Cape province. Also recently in January, we've held one in Durban, where we also, he came with us during outreach to distribute condoms bags to sex workers to say the safer sex, it is important to sex workers as much as police are arresting sex workers, but it is important that they do know that everyone should actually have access to safer sex and practice and prevent the HIV. So those are some of the achievements that you have received within the country. But we then wanted to go around the whole South Africa, all the provinces, and make use of him, since we now have a partnership with him.
Thank you. So, thank you again for sharing all your stories about working in all these very different spaces. Here in our country, the strategy that we often use is to create a very inclusive sex worker-friendly spaces for us to receive services and speak our needs to our community. But currently, we are trying to build coalition spaces, but we are faced with people who think that they're allies, but they're, trans exclusive or sex worker exclusive. So you have to deal with people who want to save sex workers by trying to get them out of sex work. So how have any of you on the panel created effective, safe spaces for sex workers to actually fight for their rights, and what strategies were effective for maintaining the safety of the sex workers in your groups? That's so cool.
Thank you. In Uganda, what we've done is that we've used HIV and TB as an entry point. We've developed brochures that talk about HIV and TB, but we mentioned sex work. Also, we've branded T-shirts, we've branded caps, we've branded wristbands, putting messages like sex work is work, we need rights, not rescue, only rights can stop the wrongs, sex workers having access to health, those kind of messages is what we used. And we also go to police stations and give these T-shirts, we go to health facilities. We sometimes, we also put in brothels, we also branded condoms, and so people just see condoms, they see that it's the same condoms that we use, but we brand and put, messages, key messages of sex work. So those are the strategies that we've used. We've used HIV and TB as an entry point to educate people about sex work. I think that's the entry point that we've used. That's the easiest way in Uganda. Thank you.
I think in South Africa, what is important first, it is to build a movement, because if we don't have a movement, sex workers won't have a voice. So those are some of the strategies we started to build on the grassroots level. The second thing was to empower sex workers to be able to understand why do we advocate, because if you don't have the support of fellow colleagues, so we won't be able to advocate. So we felt that united we stand, divided we fall. So we started to build that partnership and empowered sex workers to be able to understand why it's so important for us to be in parliament lobbying the government, and why it is so important for us to have cases that are supported of sex workers. And we also conduct directions to get attention to the public. We believe in empowerment of sex workers. One of the aims that we do within the movement, we advocating for change. We also empower sex workers to be able to speak on their own behalf. So in that way, we have a stronger sex worker movement in South Africa, that when we go out to speak or other, we protest. Like recently in Durban, we had the first ever national march where we invited sex workers across South Africa to host the march on the 8th, which was the International Women's Day. We tried also to link it to the case, because there's a recent sex worker that was killed. The case was appearing, the next appearance was on the 11th. So I think it's important to build that trust and the stronger voice on the ground, so that you can be able to have a voice, because I cannot fight for Decriminalizing alone. And those are some of the things that I tell sex workers, that the movement is not only for myself, but I think it's important that if you are still within the industry, it is important that you advocate for change. So then, as I said earlier on, that the civil society, it has created us that platform. So through those platforms, if there are any issues that are related to sex workers on any sector, maybe if we need the arts and culture sector to be part of, we communicate with them. So in that way, it creates the voice of sex workers. If there's no movement within countries, it is difficult for sex workers to access the social services, such as the legal services or any health services. It is very challenging. As a movement, at the same time, we educate the sex workers that we do have the sub-recipients, the funded organizations that are funded by Global Fund, the PEPFAR and others, etc. But we advocate, we educate them that we're calling and fighting for the equal access to rights, which is we're saying to them, it is important that make use of the government facilities, because funders, they come and go. And what we have done as a movement, we tried to look at the aspect that is mostly ignored, which is the human rights aspect. Because on the HIV, everyone is talking about HIV. We all have that information. We are very much skilled and have information with regards to that. So then we tried that, let us pay attention on the aspect that is mostly ignored, which is the human rights violation. So that is our aim. That is what we're pushing for mostly in South Africa.
Thank you. In terms of coalition building and creating safer spaces, one thing I do, I kick people out. Every event that I do, I create a disclaimer. No transphobia, no homophobia, no Islamophobia, no hate, no, all these no's. Some people take it seriously, some people don't, but I do. If anybody is in a space and they feel disrespected, they will get kicked out of my my events. I don't play with that. In addition, I do extreme vetting of organizations and people that want to collaborate. I ask questions. I interrogate them to figure out where they are in terms of their alliance, in terms of their knowledge when it comes to sex work, when it comes to trans people, and then we go from there. So it could either be like, okay, we can move forward, or I'm going to invite you to one of our trainings so you can, just be better versed before you try to collaborate with certain groups. And if we do collaborate, I make sure that if it's to stand in solidarity with sex workers, that is sex worker led, because sex workers are the experts of themselves. So, another group may want to stand in solidarity with us because they care, but they're not the experts. So they would never lead any collaboration. I make sure that it's sex worker led. So.
For Malaysia, before I become a friend with the BNSW and NSWP, what we does is we always participate in media, where the Sharia roundtable discussion, and then we will there and talk to them in media, address all the violence against sex workers. We know end of the session they will say more religious department have to come forward and provide funding for this kind of organization and open more rehabilitation for sex workers. But our aim is address the issue. Let the Malaysian hear we are here and this is our issues. And my organization in Malay we call Pertubuhan Kesihatan dan Kebajikan Umum Malaysia, but in English Public Health and Welfare Association. We only able to have a page in Facebook, and then we always write about sex workers, how challenges they are, what they are went through, how they've been imprisoned, and then how they've been caught, how the police wrote the report for them, and a lot of them are following our Facebook. After we already become a member in APNSW and also NSWP, we would like to open dialogue with the people, with the public, with the other agencies, with the government people, and exercise more with them, come out with the solution, no more criminalize, but decriminalize.
Just in addition, as I said earlier on, that Sisonke means that we are togetherness. That is the name of our movement. We are part of the ASIGIG coalition, as I stated earlier on, that is a coalition that comprises of 74 organizations in South Africa. So we're also part of the steering committee within that coalition. So in that way, we have that opportunity and also kind of like benefit to be part of the coalition, because it's not only now the Sisonke or Sweat or other organizations, but there's these 74 organizations that are in support of the call for decriminalization. We've also done the sensitization training within the community and the society, and we make sure that in each and every space that the sensitization training is done, sex workers are co-facilitating that because we believe in transformation of skills. we also believe that in the near future, when our fellow colleagues are being mentored and co-facilitating, then in future we'll be able to take a lead on that. We also work hand in hand with the LGBTI community within the sector, because we have also sex workers that are part of the LGBTI, and there's also cross-cutting issues within the LGBTI and sex workers. So we work hand in hand. So in that way, there's that visibility platform opportunities that have been created within sex workers.
I just wanted to open it up again and remind everybody that if you have a question, we are collecting cards for the Q&A. I got an interesting question, one I was not expecting to get, but one of the audience questions is, how does the U.S. government's policies impact the rights of sex workers in your country?
Okay. We all know that the U.S. government is anti-sex workers. They have the unprotected place. But what we've done, we've worked together with the civil society, and we've been involved in the PERFACO processes. But it's not easy. The US Americans are not easy, in our countries. It's very complicated. First of all, security around, if they get a no, because many of us are known as activists who talk about sex work rights. So when people see you, the way how they look at you, like the people at the security and the interest look at you in a bad way. What have you come to do here? You're a dirty person. But through civil society is how we've engaged the U.S. government. Yeah. It has the U.S. policy within our countries, especially in the South Africa specific. It has an impact because with the pledge, I must say. And as a movement, we don't actually take any money on that, because we stand with our mandate that we're calling for the decriminalization of sex work. We don't want it to be attracted by money, because we feel that will be jeopardizing our trust with our fellow colleagues. There are organizations that are receiving money. We do work in hand with them. We partner with them in some of linking sex workers or tracking of the sex workers that have been actually adhering on medication, or sex workers that have been lost, they can't find. We become the middle person. So those are some of the groundwork that we do with those organizations. One of the policies is the global gag rule, which is very challenging, but within our constitution in South Africa, every person has every right to access healthy facilities or healthy services. So that is a challenge for us in South Africa, because we cannot advocate for or support the global gag rule, for example, because we believe in safer sex. I'm used to sex word. We believe in safer abortion. So it will be challenging, because we strongly feel that the sex workers are mothers, majority are women. So then if we were to support the global gag rule, for an example, we would be jeopardizing the lives of our fellow colleagues, of our fellow sisters and our family members. And in that way, we note actually, because the constitution, it says everyone should have access to equal rights. So then what I would like to share with you is that this year there's going to be a decriminalization case that South Africa is taking up on it. We will be supported by some of the sector, Section 27 and other partners. And what I like most is that they're going to be using the Constitution of South Africa. They're criticizing it because we've got good policies in place, but when it comes to implementation of it on the ground, things are not the same. So the case is going to be on that, and they'll be using the Constitution to discriminate and to criticize it.
Yes, I was going to say something similar. In terms of policy, sex work is illegal. It's a crime that affects sex workers. They get arrested. To me, like that's what it is. You know, you have people who are trying to eat, pay their bills, do what they want to do with their own bodies, and they get arrested for it. You know, so that's basically it. And I think, like, even like the way sex workers are looked at by our government officials, like, for me, I only hear sex worker in spaces like this. You know, we're known as prostitutes. You know, so just even, you know, that verbiage, that language, places a stigma on those who participate in sex work. And, you know, with that, your life is looked at as less than. You know, people, the general public does not feel that they need to respect you, or, you know, see you even as a human being. You know, a lot of trans women are murdered, and they're sex workers, and, you know, that's a complicated thing, but, you know, if we looked at sex workers like teachers or, you know, bus drivers or whatever, it's a regular job, I think, you know, that stigma will be erased. I think people will be able to just work and provide for themselves. So the fact that it's illegal is affecting a lot of people negatively.
With and without policy, US policy in Malaysia, we have two laws. One is the Sharia and also civil. The Sharia says that is a no for sex work, and that is a crime. So no. But in civil law, we can try, we can exercise, and we can push. Yeah, that is the two things are different, because our constitution saying that everybody have equal rights. Yeah, and then followed by what job we are doing. Yeah, for that we managed to talk with the ministry, human resource minister. Yeah, would like to talk about the sex work, how are we going to draft. Yeah, and what are the challenges we will have, and then who will be our linkage, and who will be our partner. Yeah, even we have Ministry of Women and Community and Development. Yeah, there they really support for us. It's really fresh for Malaysia to talk about that. Yeah, but we started.
Thank you. I would say one of the biggest imports of American policy to global sex workers is probably our thriving rescue industry, where a lot of times it's all about rescue through arrest, which this next audience question actually kind of reminded me of that. The question says, in Serbia, both buyers and persons in sex work are criminalized. When it comes to the application of the law, almost no buyers get punished. So in practice, sex workers get all the punishment. And they ask, what are your reflections on why this is happening, and is it the same for you? Well, first they ask, is it the same in South Africa? So I guess I'll put this to you first.
Yes, as I said earlier on, that sex work in South Africa is criminalized. It was criminalized in 1957. I was not even born. And then the buyer was criminalized in 2007. So, yeah. And we have then put a case on the Law Reform Commission, asking them to review the laws, and then what the findings and the report that they came back with us was that they're calling for the partial or would need to be taken for
a rehabilitation, somewhere the bombastic, yeah, a rehabilitation, which we actually decline that report because we don't actually support that. We don't want to be rescued. We are in the industry, chosen to be in this industry, with or without limited choices, but we still chose to be in this industry. So we don't want to be rescued. We want rights.
I would say my experience has been similar to that. I know of instances where I've had trans women friends of mine get picked up by police, and the police will say, "I'll let you out if you service me." So even from that standpoint, he's not getting punished, but she still is. I used to live in New Orleans, and they have what is known as a crime of nature. And it's not there anymore, but it was if you were caught kissing or publicly showing affection to a person of the same sex or somebody they perceived as a person of the same sex, you would get arrested and you would be charged as a sex worker, but also as a pedophile. So they used to put a big old S on your ID to let people know that you were a sex offender, but prostitution was categorized under that. But there was never a big old J for John or a C for client on other people's IDs, strictly just the sex workers. So, that caused complications when it came to even trying to get a job if you wanted to get, a typical 9 to 5. Housing, anytime that you had to show your ID, you were showing this ID with this big S on it, and everybody knew what it was. Nobody knows who the Johns are, who the clients are, they're the doctors, they're the lawyers, the guys that we see in the suits, they're fine. The victims are the sex workers. So I think that's a very common experience, worldwide. And that's why the decriminalization of sex work is so important.
Talk about sex work in Malaysia. They like to differentiate female, trans, and also men. The female sex workers always been charged by the Sharia law, and non-sex workers, non-Muslim will charged by under the soliciting law. Men always been free in my country because under the Sharia law you have to have evidence for imam to see their eyes someone doing something and they have to prove it. So it's okay. But for the female sex workers, it's very difficult because they are in a red area, and then the police, the face is very familiar for the authorities in that area. So they always use the previous report and then change the date, and then they will recharge the sex workers once they've been caught. For the trans people, they've always been called cross-dressing. With the Sharia law, and for the non-Muslim, they will go for the soliciting, even though they are just sitting there eating or walking or chatting with friends in the red area. So that is a situation in Malaysia. That's why we, together with you, take a step to decriminalize the law for sex work.
To answer the why client has not been, the question was why client have not been prosecuted, right? Yeah. Yes. I think number one, police officers are making profit out of it, which is their criminal, because if they're benefiting according to South African law
from the money that I make, they're also criminals, which I think they're lacking that information. So what they would do because the law says in South Africa, if I'm caught in the act, that's the proof that they should have. Or if the police would pretend to be a client, and then I can be arrested, that is enough proof, which is very rare for police to caught a couple of sex workers into business right in the act. That's why they're making use of that municipality power laws. Then they will take a sex worker and put the sex worker in the van, and they will tell the client that will tell your wife. So you need to go throw money. There was a documentary actually that was made in South Africa showing of the police taking clients to the ATM to withdraw money and bribe, which is the client will bribe you because he fears that what if my wife will know and find out about me. So they're also doing that blackmailing. If I'm not mistaken, I think I did ask Stacey somewhere 2016, 2017 to kind of do a research and find out how many clients has been prosecuted. It was less than 15 if I'm not mistaken. But then as a movement and sex worker led in our countries, we don't want our clients to be prosecuted because that's our business and how we're going to survive. So we're advocating for the decriminalization of sex work and our client to be decriminalized and ourselves to be decriminalized, not the buyer and the seller, because we are rendering services that are needed by the community. And the community are coming to render services that so we both need each other. So it's important when we advocate that we also advocate for our client. In terms of exiting, as some countries, like including South Africa, that's what actually they are pushing for, that we need to exit. We sex addict, they say all of those things. We as a movement, we're not just saying that if there are sex workers that want to exit, they must not. We promote voluntary exit.
Thank you. I think that answer actually answered 3 of these questions. So are there any other questions out there? Any more cards to be collected?
We've got a lot to say if there are no questions.
Oh, I do have a couple of
We've got a lot to share with you.
So we had a lot of conversations about engaging as political bodies and organizing politically, seeking access for resources for sex workers. So one of the biggest challenge is changing the discourse on how much money is used for policing sex workers. The infrastructure of what I said before, the rescue industry or the abolitionists, and leveraging resources to build our own organizations. So all of you have mentioned going to local councils. Some did it, on a federal government level. So I guess I wanted to learn more about challenging some of the narratives that are kind of spewed out. Like I hear people say 90% of sex workers are coerced, even though they don't really have any factual information to back that up. So how have you engaged and tried to change the discourse from abolition and corrective things like forced exit to voluntary exit and or just sex workers' rights?
Thank you. How we've engaged politicians is how we've called them to come and have dialogues with us, like breakfast meetings. Like during the times of campaigns, we've called them to our dialogues, and we, in our creative spaces, because we tell them that we are also Ugandans and we give votes. So we want you to protect us as human. And then the other, again, the other strategy that we've used is media. We call the media houses when we are having dialogues, and maybe towards the end, we ask the media to ask these people questions about what they think about sex work. And, this is how we've done advocacy. This is how we've engaged people, the policymakers, police, Ministry of Health, Uganda's Commission, so that, you speak on the camera while everyone is seeing. So that's the message that you talk about sex work. Also, I think what we've done, we've engaged religious leaders into our dialogues because we believe that religious leaders have a lot of, audience. They preach to people. That's how we've done.
I'm trying to say too many things at the same time. Can you repeat the question for me?
So basically,
or how have we managed to challenge the
abolition movement?
Abolition. Well, in South Africa, in every space that they are in, we've tried. They don't want to work hand in hand with us. So, because one of the things that we felt it is important to work hand in hand with the anti-abolitionists, because within our organizations, we conduct outreach field work day and night. And for majority of the staff are sex workers. So in that way, it's easy to identify someone who's in trouble during the outreach. So therefore, we felt that it is important for us, for them to work hand in hand with us. But I don't think that they seem to get that message in their head. So then what we've done, we trying to make any of the space, any of the opportunity that comes our way. We do direct action. We don't wait for people to call us. We make use of media, as Beyonce was saying. We make sure that we get a message across. We do a lot of interviews. We go to Parliament. We try our best to make sure that we knock in each and every door. We don't wait for people to come to us. And we did tell ourselves that if they don't want to work hand in hand with us, we cannot stop to advocate for what we're advocating for. So, but it has been challenging because most of the opposing parties, they've got lots of influence. Some, they've been previously serving as parliamentarians within the parliament. So in that way, they've got access to other people, so they are very influential to other people, but that would not stop us to advocate and continue.
I would say first, just by sharing my story, sharing stories, creating spaces where many sex workers can share their stories to show the diversity of sex work. I would also say that I don't shy from taking up space. So if I see a group who's, they're abolitionists and they're hosting an event, I will go and I'll raise my hand and ask my question. I will take up space. And I'll bring my friends with me. So we are all, we're sharing our story, you're sharing theirs. It's not, to create like this conflict, but just to really expose people to different points of views. And, so I take up space unapologetically. And also, just organizing, marching, shouting the truth as it is. We're not all the same, and that's okay. But I would love to have that beef end. I do feel like some people don't want to do it. They're doing it because they feel like they have to. Some people want to do it, they love it, and both are fine. And I feel like together we can support each other without making one group feel ashamed than the other one. So,
In Malaysia, we are just start to talk last year sex work and sex workers. So we differentiate two categories, and always open our issue in a CCI meeting, country coordinated mechanism, under Global Fund, and also we always voice it out in Ministry of Health meeting. And follow by the Malaysian AIDS Council, we always talk about sex work if the authorities harass all the sex workers. So we are very hard to work, do our work for reduce the HIV in the country. So because people are mobilized and also people are doing under the home base. So this is will jeopardize our work and also our according to our national strategic plan. So ending AIDS 2030. So how are we going to achieve that? So for currently we are doing that. Very much voice it out in country dialogue, and we also always voice it out where the ministers talk about homeless and jobless in street. So we also spoke about sex work, why the sex workers is really marginalized and they are in the street because a lot of them are stressed and living in a very stress situation, and they also use drugs. So once we touch about the drugs and sex work, we touch two. One is a drug user and also a drug addict. So most of them drug addict because they couldn't take it, the pressure of the authorities and also the existing law. So we done one in 2017 consultation and workshop with our home minister, talk about sex work, and unfortunately we don't have any evidence to saying that sex workers been violence, and also the police take the advantage for the sex workers because we don't have the proper record. So from last year now, every case what happened, we have our form to fill up and we keep it, and then we will do that, and we will make sure everything in the proper place and talk to the authorities.
What we're planning to do in South Africa, that is one of the strategy. I'm not sure where we would get money. If you have it, you can give us. That would be nice. What we're planning now to do is to have a research on the misuse of the government resources, so that we can present it to government that, look, we are not criminals. These are the waste of the resources and the tax money for the country. That the police should be actually utilizing it to do the right work, but not to chase sex workers. So would love to do that kind of research, because now they've put a system in place that, because sometimes police will pick me up here and they will drop you far away from where you stay. Maybe it takes you about 2 hours or an hour to get back home, and that you're at risk, you might be raped, you can be killed and all that. So government has put in a system that they can be able to track. But it has been difficult to also use that evidence because sex workers sometimes they're scared to bring their cases. They're scared of media, they're scared of being at court because they can be exposed by their families and stuff. But that is one of the research that we would like to do as a country, so that we can take it back to government to say which one is which one is wasting, because we're not killing anyone, we're just rendering services to people that are in need of.
I want to do some more audience questions. So I have one that's really uplifting and nice, and then one that's going to be drama. Which one do you want to go with?
There?
I have drama and then one that's nice. Okay, drama. I'm going to read this verbatim. Many white ladies from rich countries told us this week at CSW that sex workers need to be rescued and can't make their own decisions because of poverty and trafficking. You don't seem to agree with them. Why?
Is it for me? Can I?
For everybody.
Okay. I think firstly, the anti-traffickers, we strongly feel that they are advocating for the law that actually suppresses and marginalizes women, which is unfair. Secondly, they speak on behalf of people. It is not like this panel. We speak for ourselves. So it's the testimony from the horse's mouth than the person who think on my behalf. It is not the same. So therefore, I think they need to be sensitized, and I think they're the ones that need to be rescued, not us.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. As I said before, sex workers are the experts of themselves. So, rich white ladies can't talk about poverty because they don't, that's not their experience. So anybody that's talking about another person's experience is not the expert. It's not, can't take it as fact. You shouldn't be impressed by their money and say, oh, they have money and they're educated, so what they're saying is true. And then you look at a sex worker who may not have as much money or education and say, what they're saying is false. So, they don't represent us. They don't know what they're talking about. I would curse, but I'm
not. For me, why I'm here, why I'm talking about sex work, because during my 14 years old, my father kicked me out because I'm not the same like my brother, not masculine, I'm a feminine like my sister. So my father is Christian, and then he said, in Bible, there are no between, only man and woman. So kick me out. So I've been homeless, and what I know in that time, people will touch me and they will give me money to survive. Yeah. So that's why I came here to educate and to do the advocacy work. Yeah. Yes, trafficking is there. Nobody can deny. Yeah. For us in Malaysia, that is, but it's really hiding behind for foreigners. Yeah, a lot of other country came and do sex work, and the beams is going on. Yeah, but always been caught, and we don't have any support for that kind of sex workers in Malaysia. Yes, there is, but it's not every people under the trafficking. Yeah, so some people are doing for survive. Some people they really want to do sex work because sex work is work, and other people been trafficking. Yeah.
I think also the anti-abolitionists, the confusion that they put is to conflate the two, which those are two separate things. Sex work is separate because I consent. Trafficking, it's when I'm being held against my will. So, which is why I'm saying that they're the ones that needs to be rescued because they're confused themselves. They conflate the two. We attended a couple of sessions, I think one today, and we had a lot of questions because there was one lady that was presenting, and then she says that if someone has sex with you without consenting, it's rape. And I was like, and then sex workers are consenting. So is that rape? Because those are some of the questions that we had. But unfortunately, we were not given an opportunity to ask questions. And the conversation, it was like just with them, and the audience were just there. So those are some of the things that, and not involving sex workers in those spaces, which is why we're saying that they don't represent sex workers because the sex workers' inclusivity, it's not actually being considered. So they take decision on behalf of people. I was talking to a couple of friends in the room today before we started the session that in South Africa, the anti-traffickers in some meetings, it's like a war. If we were to see that panel, like, it's like war, like it's going to get physical. And I remember one time I asked one of the lady who was coming from the anti-abolitionist organization, I said, the way you are so upset, it's like we borrow your vagina when you go sell sex.
and later maybe you are so tired, and when it's not in a way that you felt or you thought that it's gonna be like she's taking it too personal, which we were challenging her and asking questions, because we also feel that they marginalizing the ones that actually they've made choice. The example that I made earlier on, if police were to bunch in this room now and ask who is the sex worker, I would not admit into that crime because I'm criminalized. So if we are sex workers in this room, and if there are some that have been trafficked, I will also say that I'm trafficked because I want to be rescued. I want to leave this room safe without being arrested. So those are some of the examples that I've made, that the statistics, where is the research, where is the proof findings, because we need to speak about facts and proof and evidence that we have, which is they don't have. We are very much educated now. We've got information. We are so powerful. We ask these questions because we also have to challenge in order for us to protect the work that we do. No proof, no evidence.
For me, I think like sex workers have been empowered globally, but then the challenge I have is we also have these people who come in our movement, like Mickey. She says she's a former sex worker, but she's also having a hate campaign against sex workers, telling people that I joined sex work because I thought I was going to get riches, but like I was suffering, like I was trafficked. I didn't find anything good. I was always in the cold. I contracted HIV. I mean, these are the kind of things. Our own sex workers are also blackmailing us. So these are the things that we need to avoid people who come into our movement to maybe spoil the name and blackmail us. Yeah.
I guess to close out that question, whenever people want to concentrate solely on the narrative of sex workers being trafficked or sex workers being exploited, especially in this country, I would love for them to point me to any type of labor that is not being exploited, where workers in this country are not being taken advantage of.
Two things.
You see what make it do? I'm betting against sex workers. Do you want to do that with this question? Do the next question. Do you
Okay. Okay. I can answer that. Okay.
So our next question comes from the Japan's Women Watch. Thank you. What made you decide to start your activities to help sex workers? Please share your story. So that's for all panelists.
Okay. She can start then. I can start. She can start.
Anyone can start.
Okay.
As in why I joined that,
Sex workers' rights organizing.
Okay, for me, after my family rejecting me, then I joined sex work. But that time, before the laws came, sex work was good in Uganda. I was able to pay my own school fees because of sex work. And then later on, I joined activism because I felt like trans people were dying. They were being rejected and they didn't know about HIV. They were being raped. They were dying of HIV, and I said enough is enough. I decided to create space for them to access healthcare services. I mean, also to have a space and to know their human rights because they were being violated and being murdered. So this is what I wanted to stop, and people know that. Also to raise awareness about trans people and sex work. Yeah, that's it.
What made me to, as a founding member of the movement, number one, I think it's important to highlight that. I was once visited the community hospital in South Africa, which I can't mention the name. And back then, I did not know any organization. And I did not go to that government hospital because I was sick. I just felt that any car needs service. You're driving cars, and then after some time you take your car for service. I felt that I just needed to do service. So I went to that community hospital,
And then the nurse, by mentioning the address of the brothel I was staying in, she picked it up that I was involved in the sex industry. She then started to discriminate me in front of the people that we came to the clinic. Because at the clinic, people sit like this. Then you do consultation first, and then they'll tell you which room are you going in, and etc. So she started to speak like in front of people like that I'm a sex worker. There's a clinic in this street, so and so, that is for sex workers and stuff. I was so embarrassed. I felt so humiliated. I was so angry, I was full of tears, but I went to that clinic only to find out that the clinic was so friendly, because I'm outspoken. The clinic was so friendly. So in that way, I felt that maybe there's more of my fellow colleagues that have been humiliated like that. And I didn't know about that clinic, that is a friendly clinic. That's the word that we use, because normally I don't like the word friendly clinic, because I don't want people to be friendly to me. When I'm accessing services, I'm expected to be supported, because that is their job to offer those services. But, well, so they were friendly to me then. And then I started, that's when my activism started, because I realized that some of my fellow colleagues in the brothel, I looked at them, I could see that they don't know nothing about that clinic. So I started doing those referrals. And I was also violated as a human being and as a woman. So those two things actually empowered me to say, this, it has to stop. And someone has to do something. So that's when my activism started. And in fact, our movement was initiated in 2002. And in 2003, it was formed when the New Zealand was decriminalized, which I believe that by doing so, forming our movement in 2003, we will get the decriminalization of sex work in South Africa.
Yes. So for me, I would say that my advocacy probably started when I was dating a sex worker. And I started advocating for myself as a partner, which is something that, I think we need to have more conversations around. There's a lot of people don't even think that sex workers have partners, significant others, but we do. But doing that, advocating for myself as a partner of a sex worker, I was inherently advocating for my girlfriend at the time. And I just wanted folks to see the beauty within me as well as the beauty within her. So that was the initial start of my advocacy. Further down the line, it was because too many of my friends were getting murdered, and I needed to do something. I can't even think about how many funerals I've been to, just like for sex workers. So, I've never been a person to kind of sit back and watch and wait for others to do something. I've always just been a natural born leader, I guess, organizer. And then just as a person, I'm Black, I'm trans, I have all these quote unquote strikes against me. For me, that has just allowed me, I think, to have deeper empathy for other marginalized people. So even if you don't necessarily look like me, I know what it feels like to be marginalized, to be discriminated against. So I don't want to see anybody go through that. So my advocacy is just for all marginalized people, those who feel voiceless. And I think, they need people, like us, to speak up. So I just think that was just something that is a part of my purpose, to be honest.
For myself, to remember a lot of things, 14 years old, become a homeless, 15 years old, infected by virus HIV, and sex workers provide me safe space and study back. A lot of stuff, even though they use drugs, but they care about me, yeah, and they gave me the best, yeah, what they have, yeah, make me the person today who I am, yeah. That is an important message I have to say here. Being a sex workers, homeless, and also people living with virus HIV, the person living with the virus HIV, and the organization where always remind you saying that you are living with virus HIV, so you have to use condom and you have to take care of yourself and then you have to take care of others, yeah. So always use condom, and then I was like, why these people saying that I'm supposed to use condom, but which man is touch me and bring the virus to me? Why people not educating the man actually? Yeah, why me? Yeah. So started there. Yeah. I have my ambition. That particular time, I'm very stubborn, and then I feel like one day I will bring myself and show to my father, even though I'm soft, I'm a feminine, I can do something. So this is a proof. So if you give me a chance, I also can be like a brother and sisters who they are today. That is my ambition actually. But somewhere how the challenges and also the community bring me until today. So I will do, and then I go the flow and do as much as I can. And I'm also educating the new generation, yeah, to do something for the community.
Thank you all so much. We are pretty much almost at our time, so I wanted everybody to have opportunity to have a closing remark if they so choose. So, do we have a volunteer for closing remarks?
Oh, I guess send it back this way.
Okay. Thank you for the platform to voice it out about sex work. I'm really honored to Global Network of Sex Workers Project and BSWC. Yeah, and I would like to talk about sex work who are using drugs. Yeah, please, in globally, maybe we can start something for sex workers. Yeah, people really marginalized in grassroots. Yeah, so that is my remark. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to organizers for allowing me to be here. This was supposed to be an all-women's panel. But I am very, honored to be here because intersectionality is very important. Trans men who are sex workers do exist, and our stories do matter. And we're not often afforded the opportunity to share those stories. So I just want to say thank you for that. And a last remark, I will have to say sex work is real work. Black lives matter. Black trans lives matter. And sex workers are beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, 3 things that I wanted to say. It's a takeaway home. The call for decriminalization is important because we believe that decriminalization of sex work is the only remedy that would be able to remove all the barriers that sex workers are facing, HIV-wise, human rights, gender-based violence, etc. And what I also would like to say is that it's high time that we decriminalize sex work. As much as we tackle the HIV, I think it's time now also to tackle the human rights aspect. The last one is, I think people are not getting the message that sex work, decriminalization of sex work is not about the sexual intercourse, because people are engaging in sexual intercourse anyway. But the decriminalization of sex work is about changing the laws that criminalizes sex work. Thanks.
I just want to thank everybody who made it up to come here for this panel, to be part of us, and also thank NSWP for bringing us together as a movement, and also to thank BJ for having pushed for me to be on this panel. My closing remarks are that I wanted to say that sex workers are human, we are loving, we are brothers, we are sisters, and also it's like never give up the fight. Let's continue fighting, because I do believe that sex work is work, and it's the oldest profession. Even the Bible talks about it. Yeah, together we can. Thank you.
Shout out to Mary.
Amanda.
I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to all of the panelists for giving us your insights and your life stories and sharing your work with us. I would also like to thank our audience, who was very gracious with your questions. I will try to post some on NJRUA's website and try to get some answers for you, since we unfortunately did not have time today. But thank you for giving us this space and this opportunity. And I hope those who are sex workers here feel empowered to, if your ambition is to do activism and advocate for your rights, I hope you feel empowered to do so. And those of us, those of you who joined us and are not sex workers, I hope this opened your eyes to globally what sex workers are fighting for. And I hope that those who maybe walked into the room swerved still walk out of the room swerved. So thank you all for joining us, and you've been very gracious. And once again, a round of applause for our panelists.